Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Eric from Favour Capital. We are a boutique investment bank focused on TMT, consumer, and healthcare sectors in China and Southeast Asia. I will be moderating this session where we will discuss the live streaming e-commerce trade. So first of all, I would like to thank our guest speakers for taking their time here to join us. Sega, the co-founder and CEO at iKala, Andrew, the CFO at the Gushcloud, and Colin, the CEO and founder at Captive Interactive. So maybe we can just go with a quick introduction by all speakers before we move on with the panel itself. Maybe Sega can come first. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sega, co-founder and CEO of iKala. iKala is a company providing AI-based marketing technology, especially for social commerce merchants. And so we are a tool provider, and the tool is totally based on AI. And so we focus on Southeast Asia market, including Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, and Singapore.
Yeah, thank you. A quick introduction. Then maybe go to Andrew. Andrew, yeah.
Sure. My name is Andrew. I'm serving as CFO of Gushcloud. Gushcloud, in short, is a digital entertainment company where we focus on two things, so influencer marketing and creator management. I think for us, we take, the talent side of the business very seriously. And with that being said, I guess we've been doing quite a bit of work in the live stream e-commerce space. So happy to share it today.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, for joining us. And then Colin, please do a brief safety introduction for yourself.
Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Colin. So I'm CEO and founder of Captive. So I actually started Captive in China. So we've been in operations 18 years now as an integrated marketing group. One of our fastest growing business is our live streaming content curation, content creation part of business. We recently, earlier this year, set up our operations in Singapore. So we've been actively pushing live streaming festivals and content in Singapore too. So yep, happy to meet everyone here and then to share our experiences in China and Singapore.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. So let me just quick kickstart with today's topic here. So we have today's topic is the trends of live streaming e-commerce. We know the live streaming e-commerce exploded in 2020, and now it's becoming a go-to option for increasingly tech-savvy online shopping. And the consumers are seeking the good new products, promotions online. So I think the COVID-19 pandemic has also changed the way brands use live streaming and showed how essentially the strategy is to the regional retail landscape. So maybe for the first section, we will focus on the new shoppertainment experience. So for the first question, what are some contributing factors driving the social e-commerce trend and the growth of live streaming in the e-commerce? So for this question, maybe you can start from Sega. Yeah, would you like to go first? Yeah.
Okay. I think the trend in shoppertainment, which is rising now, there are several contributing factors to this. So in terms of digital advertisement, as you can see, people are now really getting tired of digital advertisement that are stalking you everywhere. So once you browse a pair of shoes on one website, the ads will follow you through the end of the world, and that's not normal. And so for example, Google is the first one to come out and to react to this kind of situation where digital ads are just too many. There are just too many digital ads. And so early this year, Google said, okay, they will sunset third-party cookies in less than 2 years. And that means everywhere tracking that might not be feasible in the years to come. And so people now turn to more effective advertisement channels, which are people themselves. And so as you can see, especially during the pandemic, during COVID-19, people spend 50% more time on social networks, browsing contents and watching live streaming. And so that in turn translates to more shopping behaviors on these social networks. And so I think the influencers are now even more trustworthy, than the ads, than the vendors that turn you just into a piece of cookie and exchange with everyone else and let the advertisement stop you everywhere. And so that's the trend we are seeing now. And so for people who are really serious about social commerce, the things they should be focusing on is, first one, influencer marketing, and know the ecosystem, especially so many different ecosystems around the world for social commerce, whether it's Taobao in China, Kuaishou in China, or it's shopping in South Asia, or Facebook, Instagram. As you can see, Facebook and Instagram are really proactive in pushing social commerce recently. And so they also see this trend upcoming. And so that's all on my side.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Sega. And then for Colin, is there anything you want to share with us? Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to add on to the points that the very valid points that Sega mentioned. I think obviously live streaming in China has gained traction in the past 1 over a year, close to 2 years now. I think originally a lot of consumers see live streaming as offering great deals, offers, low discounts or big discounts. So I think that's one of the view that a lot of consumers have of live streaming, and that I think is the expectation they have when they're looking for good offers. So that's why they go to live streaming. At least that's the starting point of it. I think other factors that's driving is really the interactivity. So the ability to ask questions, right, to the host. In some extent, even, I wouldn't use the word control, but being able to get the host to, react to their questions or their requests. I think another factor is the shoppertainment factor, which is the topic of today's webinar. So there is the entertainment factor, be it from a professional generated content point of view, or from the KOL or influencer himself or herself, having that kind of a star entertainment value. I think the convenience of it, Sega mentioned human interaction. I couldn't agree more. So now you don't have to go into a store to actually interact with a human, with a person, right? So I think live streaming offers these few things. And I think this all adds up, to drive that, increase in interest and driving social commerce and buying things, in general.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. So what about Andrew? When coming to this topic, what did come to your mind? Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think when we compare Southeast Asia to China, there's definitely, I guess, the tale that we talk about how Southeast Asia is catching up to the trends that are set on the consumer internet space in China. But I think the reality is you've already seen the Chinese, tech giants, they've already kind of deployed in this part of the world. And in fact, you see the earliest kind of trials of live stream commerce done by Lazada, Shopee, all the way back to 2018. So I guess the question is, why has it started to pick up a lot more this year, which is what we are directly experiencing ourselves. It's definitely, I think, what we call the COVID effect. Not because more people are spending, necessarily not because more people are just spending more time on the platforms, watching or consuming content, but we actually think it's because there's more buy-in from the brands as well as from the talent. Because we fundamentally believe that live stream commerce is a personality-driven type of media. And so what that means is that you need bigger talents to be coming on board to want to stream. They would need to be transitioning from going from influencer marketing, which can be branded content on YouTube or Instagram posts, going into, I guess, really actively live streaming for multiple hours. So it's really being treated as a profession in our view. So with brands having less retail outlets to be able to sell their products, they're looking for additional options, so they're willing to experiment. So that's where you're getting the buy-in from the brands. But especially we think it's important that the talents, more and more talents are coming on board to adopt this, execute this, and educate the market that this is a new form of commerce.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Yeah. Then we go to the second question. What are the demographic or the characteristic of the market that makes the most purchase during live streaming? So we know that for e-commerce market, the young population, normally aged from 18 to 34 years old, are the main target users in China as well as in Southeast Asia. So is that the same case for the live streaming e-commerce as well? Yeah. So for this question, maybe we can start from Andrew. You can just continue to share with something. Yeah.
Absolutely. Specifically in the context of Singapore, I think we've seen a very interesting trend where you definitely get the younger audience on more the e-commerce sites. And then of course you get the younger demographics on Instagram. But one very interesting platform we're seeing is actually Facebook, where you see a big transition where first you have like the fishmongers selling their produce to end consumers. You also see, I guess, sensations like the S-Hook lady that has done quite well. But in the end of the day, we see that Facebook has a little bit of an older demographic. And although Facebook does not have an automatic checkout function right now, you do see that there are a lot of, I guess, commerce enabling tools that they're using through Facebook to be able to sell the products. So in terms of categories, I think it really goes across the board. But for us, I think we're most excited about fashion, beauty, and wellness, because these are really demonstration-based and review-based products, and also can come with very kind of funky ways to be able to bundle discounts.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. So you are just mentioned about the goods and the service, the verticals, say the powerful sales in live e-commerce, right? So for this part, I think maybe Colin can share us a little bit more on that. Yeah. So which good and the service you say? Yeah.
Right. Well, starting with China, obviously, it is not untrue to say that, anything can sell on live streaming in China now, right? So many different categories. Now, a lot of our clients, fall under the fashion, sports apparel. We see a lot of good results from even, the accessories, right? Food, is very strong still. And in Singapore, if I'm not wrong, I think it is, from my experience, it's electronic goods and food that is kind of leading the way in what people are spending on. So I think this adds on to what I think Andrew was talking about, the brand buy-ins. So maybe, it could be a case of going with the daily necessities or things that, for example, in Singapore, food is something that everybody is very interested in. So it seems like a good low-hanging fruit, a good entry point for live streaming. So I think that's what we see, working very well, food and electronics. Now, with fashion, in China, we see a lot of success with the fashion. In Singapore, I agree that, there's a lot of fun ways to work with fashion and bundling. But we also notice that unless the consumer is very familiar with the particular fashion brand, because this equates to things like size, fitting, cutting, etc., there seems to be this, less of an immediate, conversion path to purchase for the fashion. And maybe because, of the geography, Singapore being smaller, I think a lot of consumers are still very, after circuit breaker, I think are still very open to going back to the stores to try something on. But I guess it's a question of familiarity and understanding of what is being sold.
Yeah. Thank you, Colin. Yeah, it's very interesting. In China, we see fashion, lifestyle, like, for example, Li Jiaqi and his lipsticks, right? So also the baby products and the electronics among the verticals that most often put on live. So collectively, according to our research, they take more than 60% of the content even put on live. So that's very interesting. So I think maybe, for this part, now we have identified as KOLs and the influencers play a very important role in attracting consumer and increase stickiness. So in the second section, we will dive into KOL a little bit more. Yeah, for this part, like we have said, the going growth route, like both up influence marketing is gaining popularity. Yeah, so as consumers will be more likely to research product or service if a friend posted a story about it compared to an influence. Yeah. So why is it so? And also how can brands benefit from working with grassroots influencer, or sometimes known as micro KOL? So what are the points and the coins of the micro KOLs marketing? So this question, maybe can start with Sega. Yeah.
Okay. So talking about influencer marketing, there are several things I would like to share. The first one is, of course, people now turn to micro or even nano influencers, for their influencer marketing campaign. One of the reasons is that it's actually related to the effectiveness of using mega influencer versus micro influencer. So in terms of the algorithms Facebook or Instagrams have for advertisers, it's not necessary that big influencers will reach more people at one time. So given the same budget. And so people now, instead of one mega influencer, we now turn to 10 or even 100 micro influencers for more effective influencer marketing. So the second problem advertisers need to solve is that how can we do this kind of marketing at scale, given that I want to use like 100 or even 1,000 influencers at a time. And so that's one of the problems we are solving, with AI tools. And so whenever you want to come up with a list of influencers, I think most people can only speak out like 3 or 5 influencers on top of your mind. But we made a search engine for advertisers so that they can search for, they can use the keyword to search for a bunch of like 100 or 1,000 of influencers at a time and contact them in a batch. And so that's the way we are helping advertisers to solve influencer marketing problems. So going back to the question of why people now turn to micro influencers, the first is of course people's interests are now so diversified, and mega influencers do not necessarily have the biggest impact on all people. And the next one is that the algorithm the Facebook has, the Instagram has for advertisers, they would drive advertisers to more smaller influencers for influencer campaign.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing. And for this question, maybe Andrew, you can just share with us a little bit more about this. Yeah, what's your thought?
Absolutely. I think we do agree, absolutely. The industry continues to evolve, and there is more and more of a, I guess, appreciation for the micro-influencer side of things. And I guess when we look at it, for every dollar spent, I think we definitely are able to see that the engagement, right, is higher. So if you use $1,000 on micro-influencers versus a macro-influencer, from a pure advertising spend standpoint, you definitely get higher metrics. But at the same time, I guess our viewpoint is that there are, I guess, definitely both pros and cons, right? So on the macro influencer side, you're seeing more and more that influencers that are, I guess, category leaders, they're going up the value chain as well. So you know, in the States, also in the Asian context, you see, I guess, mega influencers that are starting to appear on like traditional TV. They're being casted onto Netflix, and so for us, we really see this as a branding play. So in the end of the day, when we speak to our clients, or we, I guess, run the strategy and execution for our different influencer driven campaigns, it's definitely a mix. So you'd be going together with the macro and the micro to be able to balance both branding as well as engagement. But at the same time, I think what we do want to really put out there is that it's also a different medium that you're dealing with as well. When you're thinking micro influencers, you're looking for mass. You're looking for something that's a little bit more standardized, which would be perhaps an IG post, an IG story, a TikTok post. But when you're looking at the macro influencer side of things, you're looking more a little bit towards the transition where you're going from Instagram to YouTube. So you've seen this this development really happen in what we define as the North Asian economy. So like Korea, Japan, you see a lot more dollars flowing into YouTube, YouTube branded content to be exact. Whereas I guess in Southeast Asia, we are seeing that type start to slowly turn. So for us, I guess, given that we do have a presence across, I guess, the US as well as 10 countries across Asia, we're able to, I guess, actively monitor what happens in these developed markets and see how that translates in emerging markets.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. Yeah. So thank you for maybe for Colin. As we know, you have rich experience both in China and Southeast Asia. So maybe because many business models we'll see in Southeast Asia actually modeled afterwards in China, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of things that Southeast Asia players can learn from China. And the next section, we maybe dive into this area. So the question for Colin is that, are there any distinctive similarities or the difference between China's social commerce landscape and that of part of Asia? Yeah.
Right. Actually, before I answer the question, I just want to add one point to the conversation earlier about KOLs and influencers, right? I think in our experience, obviously, we don't manage influencers, and I think this is the space where, Gushcloud, will be very professional. I think just for us, we realize that if you're an influencer, it does not necessarily mean that you might be good at live streaming. I think it's also to the point that Andrew mentioned about, personality. I think it's a certain X factor and the chemistry you have in front of the camera during a live stream, especially the commerce live streaming where people are looking at authenticity, they're looking at something that's not so scripted. So I think, we found out that some great influencers or even celebrities for that matter might not be that comfortable in the current sort of live streaming format. So that's one point I wanted to just bring out. Coming back to your question, Eric, about the similarities and differences. I like to think that actually consumers are consumers wherever they are. Now, of course, there are cultural differences, language differences, and a lot of habitual differences. So one thing I would say is that right now, if you look at other parts of Asia, and I can really only comment on Singapore and maybe some of the Southeast Asian countries. I think obviously it's a fairly recent take-up, especially in Singapore with the the COVID situation and circuit breaker, etc. So one maybe is a matter of different stages or different phases, right? I think consumers are still looking for great deals. I think that any consumer, be it Chinese or otherwise, enjoy the shoppertainment part of it, right? They are very curious about knowing more, or rather they want more information about the brand. I think the consumers across the board are now very savvy, right? Before the onstart of live streaming, there was already a lot of wealth of information online. They can go to, be it social media or websites, to find out about particular products. So suddenly with live streaming, you might have a person there, talking about something. But I think the requirements are still the same. They want to know what they're buying into, what is the value proposition, prices, and they want some fun and interactivity, thrown into it. And I think this is going into, consumer behaviors, right? How do you engage? So in our business, we focus a lot of time on building audience engagements during a particular live stream. So we're talking about, come back to the question about similarities. I see a lot of similarities. I think it's just a case of different stages of development. As for differences, I think one major difference if we talk about Singapore is the geography of it. Because obviously a small place, unlike China where it could be, you might be very far away from the nearest shopping mall or the nearest store. So in Singapore, I think the model could work towards what we call new retail, 新零售, right? Somewhere where it's not just pure online e-commerce drive from live streaming, but a mixture of online plus offline, and 新零售 is something that started in China too. Yeah. So as for whether it's replicable, I think the answer is yes, but I think at the same time, it may not be 100% exactly like China. I think every country will have its own cultural influences, its own peculiarities. So I do see it evolving with their own identity and character.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Colin. That's one thing maybe I want to share with you guys about the data about the market size. According to our recent research, maybe the live streaming market takes 4.5% of the total e-commerce size in China. And for the Southeast Asia e-commerce market size is estimated to be over 100 billion by the 2025. So when we also take the 3 to 4% of the total size, we maybe say the live streaming market is roughly 3 to 4 billion US dollars in Southeast Asia. So it's quite a very big market here. So for this part, maybe Sega, can you just share us a little bit more about what you saw about the difference between these two regions, right?
Okay, so in terms of how Southeast Asia is doing in live commerce or social commerce, in addition to the cultural differences and whatnot just mentioned by Colin, we do have an interesting stats also on our side. So as a tool provider, we actually have an estimation of the social commerce size in Thailand, which is roughly $10 billion right now. So compared to China, this is relatively small, given that Taobao last year managed to garner more than $35 billion solely from live streaming. So Thailand is relatively small, but the trend we are seeing is that they are catching up really fast. And so now more than 51% of the transactions, not just on social commerce, including live commerce, is more than 51% compared to traditional e-commerce platforms. And so that's the stats we are seeing in Thailand. And so I think the real factor that is affecting how fast they can catch up is that is again the ecosystem problem. So unlike China, which is really mature in traditional e-commerce or social commerce, for Southeast Asia, they're using tons of platforms, especially in different countries. So for Indonesia, they're mostly using WhatsApp, but in Thailand, most of the merchants, they are using Facebook. And so, but Facebook or Instagram or even WhatsApp, they are not even e-commerce native. And so they are trying hard to turn themselves into an e-commerce platform gradually, step by step. And so they release the API on a monthly basis. They do their payment on a country basis. They just don't roll out every feature globally overnight. And so as a tool provider, the issues we're dealing with to help merchants catching up, with the social commerce trend is that, okay, we have this app called Shop Plus, and also we are providing payment or logistic behind the scenes for these merchants to catch up. So that's the thing, that's the phenomenon we are seeing now in Southeast Asia compared to China.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective from your side. Thanks, Sega. And the same question maybe go to Andrew. So how do you think about how far behind is Southeast Asia in catching up with the Chinese retail trend? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I definitely agree with Sega. There's an infrastructure gap, and because of the infrastructure gap, you definitely see a lot of players that I guess would be the social commerce enablers try to own this part of the market. I think the difference really from a talent standpoint in our view is what we call validation, as in the moment where I guess you've seen a real skyrocket in China really came from when you're able to see the Zhang Daiyis, the Weiyas, right, the Li Jiaqis, transition from what we call just being a digital star to going into a huge scale. So I guess in the world of, I guess, talent, the moment where people see a lot of money, there's a big opportunity to make a lot of money in certain category, that's when you get a lot of validation. At the same time, it's when you start to see like the celebrities appear because naturally they move because of the guarantees that they can get. So when we're looking at Southeast Asia, will it definitely skyrocket? I think we are moving closer to the tipping point. From an infrastructure standpoint, it will always be a question on what will be the platform of choice. As Sega mentioned, I think Facebook is, I guess, doing quite well right now in certain countries. But I think the risk factor or the variable we have right now is how we'll see the Shoppies, the Lazadas, the Tokopedias try to really muscle into the space, because they have been trying. They're definitely dedicating resources to it. But I think in the end of the day, I think we're just going towards the moment where Southeast Asia will mirror a lot of what has happened in China from a mature market standpoint. So it's definitely going to be where the big talent takes the majority of the GMV. It's going to be where you have a lot of big case studies that are driving more and more talents to go into the space. And at the same time, it will really fundamentally change influencer marketing as well, because China has already kind of passed the post-based to the live stream-based types of advertising using influencers.
Great insights from Andrew. As we have seen in China that the AI, big data, and also the cloud computing have actually been applied to the live streaming industry. So platforms can now have more accurate user profile to do the recommendations, and also the user's data can now be better protected. So in last section of today's discussion, why don't we just talk a little bit more about the deep tech? So the first question maybe go to Sega. So what are some AI application or AR, VR, or deep tech that have revolutionized in the live commerce space, right? Sega, this question for you, yeah.
Okay, sure. So the role artificial intelligence plays in social commerce is actually more subtle, given different scenarios. So when we talk about social commerce or live commerce, most of the time we are actually talking about conversational commerce. And so the transaction starts with conversations. We are seeing this interesting behavior, especially in South Asia, where people like to chat, shoppers like to chat with the merchants before really placing any orders, on any social platforms. And so the problem merchants or as a tool provider like iKala is solving is that how can we help merchants do conversational commerce at scale instead of being swamped, by any individual shoppers who just want to chat without placing any order. And so now AI comes to the stage, and since most of the transactions are happening in the conversation dialogue, and they want to do that in one place without jumping out to other places. One thing comes in mind is that it's of course you should really put natural language understanding behind your chatbot, and so that you can serve your customer, or you can communicate with customers at a lot of customers at the same time. And so we actually put a lot of investment in doing our natural language understanding capability, enhance the capability of our chatbot. And the next technology that we are using to boost, to reduce the friction of the transaction is the image recognition technology. So there are also some other interesting behaviors of shoppers in Southeast Asia, like they will post a snapshot to the conversation saying, hey, do you have this pair of shoes, or do you have this clothes, so I can buy it from you. So for merchant, this would be a big problem if they want to do social commerce at scale. So just imagine like 100 or 1,000 customers doing the same thing at the same time, and these kind of conversations could be really hard to handle in one place or at the same time. And your customer will be cold-leads if you don't serve them in real time. And so we use image recognition to recognize the product inside the image, the photos, the snapshot from the shoppers, so that the merchant can quickly recognize which product is this customer is referring to, and do I have it in my warehouse. And so that's the kind of technologies the AI technology we are using behind the scenes from our app ShopPlus, so that we help the merchants do the social selling at scale. And so to sum up, natural language understanding and also image recognition, that would be two most important AI technologies that will be used in social commerce.
Yeah, that's very interesting from Sega's perspective. And for this question, and Andrew or Colin, do you have any thing you want to add to this point?
Sure, absolutely. I think I just wanted to point out, so before Gushcloud, I was actually in the venture capital space. And I think when we're looking at the different parts of the value chain, I think definitely the enabler part is very, very important. So I think even when currently we are producing our shows, we are able to figure out that, there's so many small parts that can very easily be enabled by technology that can save us a lot of time. Because I think what's very interesting about live stream commerce is that it is tech enabled, but it's actually extremely operationally intensive. You need a sourcing team, you need a producer, you need a talent manager. And I think, so when it comes down to being able to utilize different tech tools, that's actually something that we are actually continuing to try to discover as well. But in the end of the day, when it comes down from the infrastructure standpoint, if you're able to, for example, use chatbots to do natural language processing, I think these are all very powerful tools that can support different companies that are really diving deep into this space.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. That's a very good sharing with us. And for this part, Colin, is there anything you want to comment on this?
No, I think, obviously from a tech point of view, we want to be learning. Like what you said, we're also looking at how to make our content more interesting with technology. I mean, we've tried AR, we've tried different ways. And I think, from that point of view, it's from an audience engagement point of view, how to make the content more interesting and look better, to attract more eyeballs. I think the other thing about data is, and this is where, I was just hoping to ask a question to both Andrew and Sega. With the data that you have, right, Sega, which are the 3 markets, in Southeast Asia that is showing the biggest growth in terms of social commerce? I mean, you mentioned Thailand. Is that the leader in Southeast Asia right now? Or what are the top 3, in terms of social commerce sales?
Yeah, we do have some insider information from Facebook. I can really, I can tell you for sure. Top 3 would be Vietnam, Thailand, and Philippines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay. Right. And hey, Andrew, just to tap on your experience with influencers, right? I mean, you talked about how a lot of live streaming is also down to the availability of talent. And yes. I couldn't agree more because, we need a lot of talent in our shows. And so in Southeast Asia, I mean, which are the markets that are sort of leading the way in terms of talent availability or, abundance of talent?
I think frankly speaking, this might be a little bit surprising. For us, Singapore is actually quite interesting. Okay. And I think it's also because you are having a series of channels that are really celebrity-led or like ex-Media Corp artist-led. So you naturally, you're targeting a demographic in the market that actually commands a lot higher of a wallet size, and at the same time are extremely loyal and happy to see their, I guess, previous stars come back. So I think that's what COVID has really very interestingly unlocked for us in Singapore. A little bit different when you're looking at markets like Vietnam and Thailand, where, and also actually Indonesia, where your hosts are a little bit younger, and I guess the format of the shows is actually very different as well. But I guess this is as something for us to continue to learn as well, and I guess happy to keep the dialogue open.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot. Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Thanks for all the speakers sharing. So that's an interesting perspective here. So I'd like to thank Sega, Andrew, and Colin for the wonderful sharing. Also to our audiences, so thank you for joining us today. And we hope you have again some valuable insights. So be well and stay safe. Stay safe. Bye.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye. Stay safe.
Bye.